Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So let's get real for a minute. You've probably heard the word narcissist tossed around a lot lately, whether it's on a talk show, a podcast, or perhaps your sister even accused you of being a narcissist. Maybe you've even wondered to yourself, wait a minute, am I a narcissist? Today we're peering into a question that might make you squirm a little. How do you know if you're the problem? Specifically, we're going to stake out some guideposts to help uncover if perhaps you are a narcissist or have some narcissistic traits. To do this, we'll cover three main telltale signs that could point to narcissistic tendencies. But don't worry, this isn't about finger pointing, it's about self-awareness and growth. If you think you really do have a problem, do the right thing and go talk to a professional to be sure. Before we start, let's talk about what exactly it means to be a narcissist. What is narcissism? Is it just being full of yourself, obsessed with self-image, or is there a bit more to it than that? Well, let's go to our friends in the white lab coats for the answers to these questions. Psychologists define narcissism as a personality trait characterized by a sense of grandiosity, a need for admiration, a lack of empathy, and a way of thinking where one feels they are entitled to special dispensations in their interactions with others. However, it's important to remember that there is a spectrum. Some narcissistic traits are actually pretty common, and not everyone with these traits has narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD. In fact, according to Psychology Today, quote, narcissism is properly viewed on a spectrum. The trait is normally distributed in the population, with most people scoring near the middle and a few at either extreme. The Narcissistic Personality Inventory, or NPI, developed by Robert Raskin and Calvin S. Hall in 1979, is the most commonly used measure of the trait. Scores range from 0 to 40, with the average tending to fall in the low to mid-teens, unquote. Psychology Today also notes that regarding the severe pathological end of the spectrum, quote, it affects an estimated 1% of the population, unquote. Now that we have the big picture, let's go a bit deeper and unpack some of the more specific signs that indicate narcissism. So here we are at the main event. Let's go over now the three signs that you might be showing narcissistic tendencies. Sign number 1. You feel like the world revolves around you. We often hear about warning signs and red flags. Well, when thinking about narcissism, this first indicator is a major one. Narcissists often believe their needs, opinions, and desires are more important than anyone else's. They might dominate conversations, constantly steer things back to themselves, or feel entitled to special treatment. But wait a minute, aren't a lot of people like this? We all like some attention, don't we? And aren't we all at least a little bit interested in ourselves? Well, psychologist Keith Campbell helps put a finer point on this and brings these very good questions into a sharper focus. He's the co-author of the Narcissism Epidemic, and this insightful work talks about how grandiosity, this inflated sense of self-importance, is a core trait of narcissism. It's more than just wanting attention. It is believing that you deserve it more than others. For some reason, this sort of person believes they enjoy special status. We see then, this hyper self-centeredness flies way beyond normal and basic interest in oneself. So, you find yourself getting frustrated when the spotlight's not on you, or if you tend to think, why aren't people paying attention to my problems? It could be an indicator. Knowing that, let's now move on to the next sign. Sign number 2, you struggle with criticism. Narcissists often have a fragile sense of self-esteem. So when they receive criticism, whether it's constructive or not, it can feel like a personal attack. Remember, this is a person who feels they deserve special treatment. In their mind, how then could they simultaneously warrant criticism? In the narcissist's mind, these two factors simply don't add up. In a study published in Personality and Social Psychology Review by Bushman and Baumeister in 1998, researchers found that narcissists tend to react aggressively when they feel criticized, often lashing out or becoming defensive. Even mild criticism can set off a cycle of blame shifting, or even passive-aggressive behaviors. If you find that you can't take even the smallest bit of feedback without feeling wounded or angry, it may be time to ask yourself why. Are you perhaps trying to protect your ego at all costs? Now, let's move on to sign number 3, lack of empathy. This one is also important when determining narcissism. Narcissists often struggle to see things from someone else's point of view. This makes sense when we reflect back on sign number 1. They think the world revolves around them. They're more focused on their own feelings, which means they might have a hard time understanding or even caring how their actions affect others. Empathy is a fundamental part of healthy relationships. In fact, a 2008 study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology by Paulhus and colleagues found that people with narcissistic traits often struggle with interpersonal connections because they prioritize their own needs over others on a consistent and recurring basis. This lack of emotional awareness and discernment can lead to strained or superficial relationships. So, if you notice that you rarely consider how your actions or words impact others, or if you're more focused on what you can get from relationships rather than what you can give, that could be a sign. All right, let's quickly recap the 3 main signs that indicate you might be narcissistic. Sign number 1, you feel like everything revolves around you. Sign number 2, you struggle with criticism and tend to react defensively. Sign number 3, you have a lack of empathy for others. Now, before you panic, remember, we all have narcissistic traits to some extent. It's part of being human. What we hope to get after today is self-awareness. If you recognize these patterns in yourself, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. If you think they're a bit excessive, or if people have even said as much, maybe it's worth a deeper reflection and possibly a visit to a professional. Start asking yourself questions like, am I truly listening when people talk, or am I simply waiting for my turn to speak? Or, how do I react when someone criticizes me? Am I open to it, or do I get defensive and hostile? To move beyond these traits, you can also try practicing empathy. That could be as simple as checking in on a friend without making it about you, or trying to see a situation from another person's perspective. Another important step, learn to handle criticism without letting it shatter your sense of self-worth. But are you doomed if you have these traits in large measure? Not at all. Therapy can be a great way to develop the skills necessary to address narcissism. One method is cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, which helps you challenge unhelpful thoughts and develop healthier ways of relating to others. Remember, recognizing these traits in yourself is actually a good thing. It shows you're self-aware and willing to grow. So if you're brave enough to ask, am I the problem? Then you're probably already on the right track. That's it for today, friends. Let me know in the comments if this resonated with you and if you're ready to do some self-reflection. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more psychology insights. We'll see you in the next one, and remember, knowledge is its own reward.